Africa is home to some of the world's richest natural resources. Sitting on a treasure trove of untapped potential, Africa has over 30% of the world's mineral reserves. No wonder Africa has been seen as the future of global supply chains.
But it's not just about the minerals. Africa's fertile land makes it the perfect place to cultivate a variety of crops, everything from cocoa, coffee and tea to cassava, maize and legumes. It's a market that feeds billions and offers huge growth potential for investors looking at the future of food security and agribusiness. By the way, my name is Hawa and I represent the western part of Africa.
And that's just the start. Africa's energy sector is rapidly evolving with abundant natural resources like solar, wind, and hydropower. The continent is positioned to become a global leader in renewable energy. Countries like South Africa, Egypt, and Kenya are already making significant strides towards energy independence and sustainability.
Don't even get me started about what makes Africans stand out. Of course, it's its people, the young, dynamic, and entrepreneurial spirit that is fueling the rise of technology and innovation. We are seeing incredible growth in sectors like fintech, e-commerce, and mobile technology. The continent's digital transformation is creating new opportunities for businesses and investors, and the pace is only accelerating.
Discussing trends, challenges, and opportunities available in Africa is what we discuss on Invest Africa Podcast.
Invest Africa Podcast.
You are Africans. We are Africans. Louder. We are Africans. Louder. We are Africans. Come on, Africans. Yeah. We are Africans. I can hear you. We are Africans. Louder. We are Africans. Come on, Africans.
So whether you are a seasoned investor or someone looking to explore the emerging markets, the Invest Africa podcast is here to help you navigate this exciting landscape. Join us as we take you on a journey to Africa's abundant resources, thriving industries, and the game-changing investments that are shaping the future of the continent.
The Invest Africa Podcast, shaping Africa's investment landscape.
Welcome everyone. You're tuning into the Invest Africa Group podcast. And today we're about to embark on a journey through a story that is reshaping Africa. The rise of women in business, governance, and leadership. We are talking about a power shift, a transformation in who leads, who innovate, and who is shaping the economic trajectory of the continent. We'll explore data, the real stories, case studies, and investment insight that shows not just progress but massive opportunity. Will also highlight barriers and pitfalls because understanding them is just as important as celebrating the wins. Africa, has historically been entrepreneurial, but today women are leading a new wave of innovation across sectors like tech, agribusiness, fintech, and governance. But before I start, my name is Mubarak Abimbola, and our Adegbite will be joining me in the studio as usual. But let me lay the ground and let me lay the foundation for today's conversation, okay? Because today is all about celebrating people like our Adegbite, founders, entrepreneurs, people who are leading the change in the continent. Did you know that in sub-Saharan Africa, women entrepreneurs account for about 26% of all businesses, more than double the rate in Europe? That means more than a quarter of a new business are founded, run, and scaled by women. I mean, this isn't a niche phenomenon, okay? It is mainstream. But despite our entrepreneurial engagement, women are underrepresented in senior leadership, board seats, and tech startups, creating both a gap and opportunity. Today, we'll analyze the why, the how, and the impact of the shift. We'll also share insight from diaspora women, policy advocates, investors, and founders. Real people making real differences. So grab your coffee, notebook, or earbuds. This conversation is going to be long, deep, and rewarding. So please make welcome my partner, the one and only, our Adit Peter.
Hi guys, hello Mubarak. Wow, like this is such a profound introduction. I mean, I'm just here blushing and smiling, and I like the fact that you've set, the stage for today's conversation. It's good to be here once again, especially discussing this, really interesting topic and spotlighting the entrepreneurship spirit of women in Africa. It's such an amazing opportunity to be here today. Mubarak, how are you today? You seem to be in a really good mood, and I like that. I mean, I don't know if it's because we're talking about women or you're just in a general good mood.
Wait. What does that mean? What does that mean? What do you mean? Is it because we're talking about women? Hello? I'm trying to celebrate the women.
I'm just trying to get sorted about. That's good. We are saying the same thing. So guys, let's start by framing the landscape, yeah? Women's participation in leadership isn't just a social issue, right? It's an economic imperative. Across Africa, closing gender gaps could add roughly $2.5 billion to GDP. That's the World Economic Forum speaking, not me. When women lead businesses, social and economic returns multiply. Women will invest about 90% of income in families and communities compared to 40% of men. That's quite transformative. And entrepreneurship is one place where African women are outpacing global peers. In Uganda and Ghana, women make up almost 4 in every 10 business owners. But we need to look deeper. We need to look deeper at leadership, especially leadership in tech, in corporate boards and governance. That's where the story becomes complex. And like Mubarak has said, today we are going to explore the full spectrum. We're going to look at entrepreneurship, tech leadership, political power, diaspora influence, and investment opportunities. We'll also showcase stories of African women who have scaled globally, raising millions and billions in funding and changing industries. So think of this as your masterclass in African women-led innovation, leadership, and investment opportunities. And, don't worry, because we also want to learn from you. We'll try to make it as fun as possible. So don't forget to share your reflection, your insights, or your contribution using the hashtag InvestAfricaGroup Podcast.
All right, let's start with numbers. I love numbers a lot. According to Grant Thornton 2025, women hold 36.6% of senior leadership roles in Africa, down from 41.3% in 2024. The decline might surprise you, but it highlights the barriers women still face in advancing beyond entrepreneurial success into senior corporate leadership. South Africa stands out with 47.2% female senior leadership in mid-market companies, the highest in the world. Nigeria, Kenya, and Morocco over around 30 to 38%, showing progress, but still leaving room for growth. In tech, women hold only 11% of CEO positions, and around 17% of startups have at least one female co-founder. Well, this is according to veryafrica.com. This paints a 3-layer picture. 1. High entrepreneurship. 2. Moderate corporate leadership. 3. Low tech and scale leadership. Now, the conversation we're about to have today is not a story of absence. It's a story of opportunity to bridge gaps.
And this opportunity we are talking about isn't just theoretical. African women are driving impact at scale. Consider an insurtech startup called Naked, co-founded by Somari Gravy, which raised $38 million in Series B funding in 2025. or Polar, founded by Rose Goslinga, providing climate resilience insurance to millions of farmers across Africa, which has raised over 10 million euros to scale, in the continent. And this is just the start. Across fintech, agri-tech, biotech, name the sector, even trade platforms, women founders are proving that impact plus innovation could equal scalable businesses. We'll look deeper into policy support, diaspora influence, and investment opportunities soon. But before that, let's talk about the barriers actually holding women back so that we can understand the full context here. So, Mubarak, do you want to start with the barriers and gender bias in play here?
I don't know. That's a bias on its own. Why is it that you don't want to start with the gender bias? You understand it better. But let me say from the point of view of what I've seen. There's a popular Yoruba saying or a popular African saying that a lantern does not see itself. So let me highlight the barriers and gender bias, okay? Let's talk about why, despite impressive entrepreneurial activities, women still face systemic orders. One thing I've noticed is that the major challenge is access to finance. Women find it difficult across Africa to access finance. And this was backed up by a Business Day article which states that across Africa, women-led businesses face a $42 billion funding gap. This is not just money left on the table. Yeah, it is millions of businesses and livelihoods constrained. And the bias isn't subtle, okay? Venture capitalists often unconsciously favor male founders, especially in tech and finance sector. Only 20%, I'm very sure of this, only 20% of total startup funding in Africa went to female founders in 2024. You can go and verify. Beyond capital, network access is critical. Mentorship, advisory board, and investor connections remain predominantly male-dominated. Cultural expectation compound these challenges. Caregiving responsibilities and, societal norms sometimes limit women's availability for travel, networking, or high-demand leadership roles. Yet, despite all these obstacles, women are innovating, scaling, as well as winning global recognition. So the key takeaway here is that, yes, the truth is barriers exist, but they are not insurmountable. The successful leaders find a way to navigate, leverage, and of course, overcome.
Exactly, Mubarak. And I purposely put you on the spot because, like you're saying, I wanted it to be you talking about the biases so that it won't be as if I'm just blowing the horns here. So, it's important to highlight that the barriers are multidimensional. We can say it's economic, it's social, and structural. Women in boardrooms, especially in sectors like finance or tech, are still underrepresented. Now, speaking of numbers, roughly 22% of board seats in Africa are held by women, and only 10% of startup CEOs are female. This has a direct effect on funding decisions. Fewer women at decision-making tables can mean fewer investments flowing to women-led startups. But here's the exciting part. Initiatives are emerging to bridge these gaps. For example, the IFC allocated $310 million in African finance packages to support women-owned businesses in 2025. This news is out there for anyone to verify. Additionally, mentorship networks, accelerators, and women-led venture capital funds are multiplying opportunities for scaling. Right, women-led venture capitalists now number over 30 in Africa, providing both capital and strategic support. This shows that when ecosystems are intentionally built, women-led ventures thrive. And it's not just about funding, it's about creating a holistic support system for women across Africa.
So let's focus on the policy and institutional support. What is missing? Okay. Rwanda has done something I believe every African government must, model to watch. Rwanda is the only African country with more than 50% women in parliament, demonstrating the correlation between representation and inclusive policy making. Across sub-Saharan Africa, women occupy roughly 27% of parliamentary seats. Progress, but still below parity. Policy mechanisms that promote gender equality should include, but not limited, quotas for women in leadership positions. I don't know how we can overstate this. This has been something that is being, discussed in parliament these days, most especially I know for Nigeria, where it is being pushed that they should design certain numbers of parliamentary seats for women and also certain numbers of appointments for women in government to ensure that the female gender can also participate extensively in governance. Also, another policy mechanism that can promote gender equity, in my own opinion, is incentivizing funding for women-led enterprises. Although we've been seeing many of this, but we can still do more. Also, legal framework to protect women entrepreneurs from discrimination. If all these policies are put into play, you would realize that the women's support will grow drastically if all these policies are implemented.
Absolutely, Mbak. I agree with you. And these aren't just theoretical policies, right? If we look at it, real world impact exists. For example, moving on from Rwanda that is setting the pace, for women supportive policies across Africa, Nigeria's Women Enterprise Fund has supported over 25,000 women-owned small medium enterprises with funding, training, and mentorship. Kenya's Women Enterprise Fund provides loans and advisory services specifically for women entrepreneurs, which has created ripple effect in job creation and community development. There's also Morocco, who has introduced gender-sensitive entrepreneurship programs in 2025, targeting tech startups and SMEs. Policy support alone, is it enough? If we look at it, it must be paired with institutional ecosystem, accelerators, incubators, mentorship networks, and investment platforms. This combination is what allows women-led ventures to scale effectively, if you ask me.
Yeah, earlier when you were introducing the topic, you made mention of some certain names, and these names inspire me deeply because of their contribution to the ecosystem. The reason why I'm, bringing this back is because we need to talk about success stories. Success stories, help to motivate women. It helps to motivate people. It points us to the direction of if these people can do it, yes, others can also do it better. That's why we have to bring in real life success stories. You made mention of Simari Grebi, who co-founded Naked. It's not easy to raise a $38 million Series B funding. I mean, that's really a huge amount of money. And for someone to make that kind of funding in insurtech is one part where most people do not want to go into. Yes, there's fintech, there's edtech, there's agritech, but insurtech is not as popular as all of this. But Grebi made a global impact in insurtech. And one reason why I think that's really a great success story to even start with. Another name you mentioned is Rose Goslinga, the founder of Pula, who scaled climate resilience insurance across multiple African countries such as Rwanda, Kenya, and all of that. Then there's Alexandra Mizweski of Altira Biosciences. I don't know. I love this woman a lot. Raising $1.6 million pre-seed funding for biotech research in South Africa. Well, reason why I work, inspires me a lot is because of a niche, biotech, research. I love people that are into research a lot. It makes me feel like this is something I could not have dedicated my life to. Trying to she raised $1.6 million pre-seed funding already. And, she and her team, they are doing great and amazing job in Altera Biosciences. I mean, this leader showed that innovation plus impact, plus leadership equals to scalable businesses. And these are many cues our listeners, most especially our female listeners, can tap in from and learn from.
Absolutely. Mbak, I like that you set the stage with these very impressive women across Africa. We are seeing so many case studies, right? We've seen real life stories, especially in leadership, showing that when women are in leadership, then scale is inevitable. Look at Liquify. That's another story that is quite impressive. Liquify is co-founded by Nadia Yaramenko and Alberta Asafwa Samoa. Liquify has solved invoice payment delays for exporters, right? And right now, Liquify has raised a whopping $1.5 million. This is another example of women leading the charge and creating sustainable solutions across Africa. Or there's PiggyVest in Nigeria. PiggyVest is scaled by diaspora women-led teams, now leading a savings and investment platform in Africa. I mean, I use PiggyVest myself, and just the design of the platform, the design of the app, the way they relate with the client or the customers, rather, the app users, let me put it that way, you would know this is women-led because the attention to details is quite profound. And we are not just seeing women leading charges in tech or fintech or edtech, the fashion industry, the retail industry. We are seeing so many stories coming. Look at Reni Folawiyo, right? Reni Folawiyo has taken the African luxury brand, African fashion brand globally. We could look at her as a pioneer of African luxury brands to the global market. And these stories show that women are leading, and it's not just locally, it has become globally, and they're still creating opportunities for investors, for employees, for communities, for themselves as well. And remember, every success story was often preceded by overcoming barriers, right? Barriers have been set down, networks have been leveraged, and it also shows that these women have navigated a market that is so complex for success. And, it's just good to see. And I'm actually proud of these women. I hope to be leading the charge someday as well.
Trust me, you will. Okay. And for those that if you've been following Invest Africa Group podcast for a while, you would know how I admire Reni Folawiyo. I mean, at the mention of her name, I just have to smile. I know that our purposely did that just because she knows I seriously admire the good work Reni is doing. And one thing I noticed, I don't know, this is not to throw shades at anyone, but you've realized that many of the women that are doing so well, whether on the continent or doing so well representing the continent, they are diaspora women. But it is the diaspora women that is leading the change. I don't know if I'm wrong, but they are a group whose influence is often underestimated, but it is reshaping African entrepreneurship and investment. I mean, you made mention of the PiggyVest platform. You made mention of Reni Folawiyo, the likes of Grey B that you mentioned earlier, as well as Goslinga. Also, I think you mentioned of Nadia Yaramenko. Even though Alberta Asafwa Samoa, I think she has a connection to Ghana, but she still stays abroad. I don't know why, but I feel like it is the diaspora women that are driving the change, probably because of the fact that they have access to capital, mentorship, and global network. Maybe that's the reason why it is easier for them. But one thing we can take away is that they've been helping local startups scale
internationally. They've been connecting African ventures, to Silicon Valley, to London, and to other major hubs that is opening doors that were previously inaccessible. Take fintech, for example. Diaspora women investors have been instrumental in scaling platforms like that of PiggyVest, enabling it to become a leading saving and investment ecosystem across West Africa. Then you mentioned Folawiyo earlier. I think she was able to break the market barriers in introducing African print, African fashion brands to the global market. But one thing I also noticed is that probably because of the fact that they have access, investors who understand these networks, can see that diaspora involvement has been able to accelerate capital flow, innovation adoption, and market expansion. And they've been able to, expand the frontier of opportunities that combine local knowledge with global resources. And this is especially critical in sectors like climate tech, agri-tech, and, fintech, areas where women-led ventures are thriving. Diaspora Network have also been providing mentorship, guidance, and operational know-how, reducing failure risk for startups. And so this is like a wake-up call to African women that are living in the continent. Yes, truly, there are barriers, there are, bureaucratic, low-hanging fruit. But I want to believe that African women living in Africa can also break that barrier. They can also be on the list where we'll start mentioning them, we'll start referencing them. And it won't just be that whenever we're mentioning women that are doing better, it has to be the diaspora women.
Okay, Mbak, I would say that you've answered the question that you asked already, or the concern you're raising. Diaspora women, they have access to opportunities, right? And that is like the major thing I see in play here. And it could be dated back to the medieval times, right? Women left their homes, they left their communities, took their goods to, a larger market to sell, but they always came back home to invest those proceeds, right? And it's more like you leave home to feed home. So they go to the global cities, global communities to learn best practices, because in this, should I say, developed countries, you get access to credit, you get access to opportunities, you get access to innovation, right? And they use this to build solutions back home. And it's not just funding now, right? Diaspora women also bring best practices in governance, corporate culture, and operational excellence. For example, a lot of Rwanda's tech startup, I'm talking about over 50%, have benefited from diaspora women advisors who implement scalable processes, and improved investment readiness. Similarly, Nigeria's energy and fintech sectors have been diaspora-led or have seen diaspora-led mentorship programs, supporting women founders with compliance, strategy, and fundraising. The result is quite clear, and it builds a venture-ready business that can attract both local and international investors. And diaspora influencers also normalize Africa as a multi-asset class destination, building investor confidence. We saw the story of Alberta and Nadia of Liquify. The diaspora connections helped the startup access capital and clients beyond Ghana. This kind of cross-border network is what distinguishes high-growth ventures from the rest. It's what distinguishes the diaspora women from the local women. And it's a living example of how women-led innovation creates global ripples. And, investors who ignore these networks may miss the next African unicorn, particularly in underfunded sectors. Right. So as we talk about opportunities later, let's keep diaspora leverage in mind because it's a strategic multiplier.
Well, we've been mentioning women that have been doing well in businesses, and I know a lot of people will be wondering what happens to governance. This is where the whole system is designed.
Because if we do not have female representative in governance, sometimes many of the decisions that will be made, might not favor, the female gender. Hence the reason why we have to talk about the success stories in governance as well. And whenever we are talking about leadership and governance, one name that first comes to mind as a typical success story in leadership and governance will be the World Trade Organization DG Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala. That's to tell you that women are just not leading businesses. They are big shaper of policies and governance. Let's even start taking it country by country. Rwanda's 50% women in parliament is often cited, but we are also seeing female industries leaders, female ministers, CEOs of state enterprises, and ambassadors influencing trade, finance, and corporate ecosystem. That's always impressive. I love the fact that every time we're talking about women, we like to reference Rwanda. That's because they've created a model for everyone to copy. In Kenya, women like Amina Mohammed, who happens to be the former cabinet secretary for foreign affairs, have been pivotal in shaping investment policy and international partnership. Also in South Africa, we see female executives like Tuli Madonsela, the former public prosecutor, who influenced government reforms, indirectly supporting entrepreneurship and ecosystem that favors women one way or the other. So this example demonstrates how women in governance enhance transparency, inclusivity, and economic growth, thereby creating an environment where businesses can thrive. So female leaders have been seen to prioritize policies like SME support, gender-lens investment and financial inclusion, benefiting broader population. We are now seeing investors watching this shift to identify countries and sectors where regulatory framework support inclusive growth. And one thing I also notice is that whenever women are involved in policy shaping, investors are always noticing and they take in investment there more than countries that do not really care about female or women inclusion into their policy. So I think I must say that for broader context, for policies, for businesses, for governance, women inclusion matters, representation matters, because it gives a perception, it gives an imaging that, there is a fine-tuning, there is an attention detail personnel in this system that see things beyond the ordinary. That's why representation matters. Women in leadership are not just symbolic, they shape markets, standards, and strategic priorities. So I must say that for businesses, having women in government can improve public-private partnership, it can improve access to contracts and give better understanding of market intelligence. So it's not only morally right, but I believe it is economically smart.
That's right, Mbak. And not just in governance, we're also seeing this happening in the corporate world, right? Women are breaking ceilings in tech, finance, and industrial sectors. For instance, female CEOs in South Africa's mid-market companies now make up nearly 47%, which is one of the highest recorded globally. Right, Nigeria's corporate sector also has notable leaders like Ibukun Awoshika, the former chairman of First Bank, advocating for financial literacy, SME support, and women empowerment. Tech leadership is slowly catching up with founders like Inyoluwa Aboyeji, female co-founders in fintech, bridging gender gaps. We also see women heading Pan-African investment firms that allocate funds to underserved sectors, creating multiple economic ripples. The key insight in all of this is that women-led governance and businesses aren't isolated wins. They compound across ecosystem. The first-time environments that encourage entrepreneurship, reduce bias, and attract international investors. And each story that we've shared today reinforces a central theme, which is when women lead, market grows, community benefits, and opportunities multiplies. So, to our listeners, this insight should translate into actionable understanding of where to focus attention and capital. So, by the end of this episode, we want to leave you with both inspiration and practical intelligence for investment strategy.
All right, guys, let's move to the trending investment news. Of course, you know that every episode we inform you of investment news that are currently shaping the African continent. Let's pause and look at the latest trending news shaping our continent today. Okay, recently, Kenya signed a $311 million power line deal with Africa 50 and an India firm, boosting electricity access and grid stability. Okay, this story was confirmed by Reuters early December. Okay, also Kenya's cabinet approved new infrastructure and sovereign wealth fund, attracting long-term capital. And then there is my home country, Nigeria. They've issued permit for a $2 billion gas flaring project targeting 3 gigawatts power generation. And also in South Africa also recorded smaller foreign direct investment outflows in the third quarter of 2025, but they'll continue to attract inbound investment. Okay, that's it from my own end on trending investment news that I have. Awa, do you have any?
I think you said it all, but I have one also from South Africa. South Africa has eased affirmative action regulation on firms like Starlink, affecting tech and infrastructure investment dynamics. I think that's all I have from my end. So while these headlines may seem macroeconomic, they directly affect women-led businesses and investors. Infrastructure projects create opportunities for women in construction, fintech, and logistics, just like Ombak mentioned coming out from Kenya. And energy projects open doors for startups in renewable energy and climate tech led by female entrepreneurs. Regulatory shift in tech can create easier pathways for women founders to raise funds and operate across borders. Moving on from the investment news, Mubarak, what are the opportunities for investors when it comes to women-led businesses in Africa?
Well, let me start with the biggest one, and of course, the biggest in the world. Whenever we're talking about fintech at the moment, Africa's fintech or Nigeria's fintech seems to be rising to the core these days. Fintech remains a frontier sector, okay? Yeah, a startup like Piggyvest, Wallet.ng, Flutterway's female-led initiatives are scaling rapidly, and these are businesses that you can consider to invest as well. And then there's agri-tech, which is another high-potential area. Women founders are creating climate-resilient solutions, insurance models, and farm-to-market platforms. And then there's health tech and ed tech, which are growing fast. In fact, they're growing rapidly. I don't know what's the rush for, but I like the rush. Okay, investments like that of Mona Clinics, tutorial that have female leadership at the helm are solving systemic, problems in healthcare and education. And more reason why this is important, why I love that women are focusing on health tech and ed tech, is because readily or originally, health issues are always commodified by the main gender, most especially when it concerns the female gender. You hear men naturally say that, why is this girl always sick? Why is this lady always battling one health issue or the other? But, you can understand, or most people can understand, because they don't understand the female anatomy. And, it's quite important that the female gender or the women are, taking leadership role in health tech and ed tech. And education is important too. When a woman is given access to train a child, you can understand the ripple effect. Teachers are the backbone of the economy. They train everyone to be better. Then there's the diaspora connection, which presents a multiplier effect. Investments are not just about capital alone. They are about access to global market, mentorship, and enterprise. So women-led ventures often have higher social impact, increasing adoption, retention, and trust among communities. Lastly, governments across Africa are increasingly offering grants, incentives, and public-private partnerships to support women entrepreneurs. So, if you have an idea, you have a business model, you should look out for investment opportunities or funding that is coming from the government, from ESG businesses, from corporate bodies, from Syria, different kind of venture capitalists. They do give privilege, or they give access to women-led projects, women-led ideas. So many opportunities abound, for investors in this conversation. And also, apart from investors, there are also so many opportunities that are bound for women ordinarily to tap into. So as an investor, focus on women-led initiative and you make profit. As a woman, there's so many fundings that are available for you. So it's about putting the round peg in the round hole.
Absolutely, Muda. I asked the question and you just ran with it. I mean, kudos to you because you've summed it all up, right? Let me just add another layer to that, right? Technology adoption, right? Data has shown that women-led tech ventures are often early adopters of AI, blockchain, or any other technology innovation springing up, and this has created scalable solutions for African markets. Consider the rise of femtech platforms in Nigeria and Kenya, right? They are disrupting health, finance, and logistics, and it's quite obvious look at the solutions that are being developed. Cross-border trade platforms led by women are unlocking African markets for global investors. Also, renewable energy startups led by women are tackling climate change while creating high-margin investment opportunities. And like Mbarak said, education, women are generally known to be teachers, to be nurturers, right? So imagine when a woman is leading education and upskilling platforms, right? They are basically shaping the next generation of African edtech innovations, right? And impact investing is another area. Funds targeting gender equity are increasing globally. African women-led businesses fit into this profile perfectly. So you might want to look into gender equality or gender equity investments. And for everyday investors, small-scale ventures like digital retail, e-commerce, and agri-tech provide entry-level opportunities with high growth potential. What we are trying to say in some way is that African women are not just shaping markets, they're creating investable ecosystems, and you want to tap into that as early as possible. The challenge now is to recognize these opportunities early before valuations skyrocket.
That's true, Awa. But at this point, I would always lay it bare for you to make your decision. So it will be that, it is Invest Africa Group podcast that we had. There's opportunity, but they didn't give us the detailed information. For every opportunity comes pitfalls. So one of the pitfalls of women entrepreneurship or women leadership that we do not always consider is the overestimating our ability to overestimate market readiness. As much as we say that women are great addition, they bring so much value, is the market ready for women leadership? That's one big question we should ask ourselves. Is women-led businesses, are they ready for scalability? Because not every innovative idea scales immediately. So we need to understand whether we are overestimating the market readiness of women leadership in business, in governance, in every sector. And, look at it critically before you place your investment. So any businesses you are looking at to invest into, you need to ask yourself, is this business market ready, or we are just overestimating it? Secondly, regulatory risk can affect sectors like fintech, edtech, and energy because compliance is critical. Though women are very attentive to detail, they pay attention to detail, but sometimes regulatory scares them. Regulations scare them. The bureaucracy gives them this panic, and they chicken out easily. So you might want to understand the sector the women leadership are into. What's the regulation there? What's the bureaucracy there? That's another thing you should also put in mind. Also, lack of proper due diligence on leadership teams can lead to operational failures. Even a strong founder needs a robust governance. Yes, we are pushing for women leadership, but what are the assisting team? What are they comprising of? Yes, it's not just about investing in a business that has a woman as its leader or as the head. What are the assisting team? What are they like? What's their capacity? What's their CV? What can they do? You should also consider that. Then there's the over-reliance on diaspora network, which may create disconnect with local realities. Of course, yeah, the fact that the leader of the business or the industry is from America, is from UK, from Canada, from France, from China, yeah, or they have an experience there, does not mean they are really connected to the local realities. We've seen that before in governance here in Nigeria, someone that did wonderfully well outside the continent, but when they were brought into the system, to lead, to change, or to charge the affairs of the country, they could not perform. Reason is because, yes, they understand microeconomy, they understand textbook economics, but the local reality was different. So you should also look at, are we being over-reliant on diaspora network? Because when we are over-reliant on diaspora network, we get disconnected from local realities. So investors need on-the-ground insight. Lastly, scaling too quickly without operational readiness is also a risk that you must consider. Growth must be sustainable. Any business you are investing in, what's the sustainability? That's one thing you should start asking yourself. Not just putting your money out there, sustainability of that business, irrespective of who is leading or charging the affairs. Okay. Oh, I already said lastly, but something came to my mind right now. Gender bias is still a reality. Okay. Gender bias is still a reality, most especially in local market. So once your business is gender focused alone, or the business you're investing in is gender focused alone, you might find it difficult to scale because gender bias is still a reality. Local markets, slow adoptions or create a market resistance to women-led ventures. I think that would be the pitfall I can identify from my own end for investors. So all you need to do is take a moment to write all of these down, consider them, and reflect on them.
I quite agree with you, right? All of this you've mentioned, especially the part of gender bias, right? We still see a lot of societies in Africa being patriarchal, right? And some people will not just even want to patronize a business or have dealings with a business that is women-led, and it's still happening regardless of how much liberal that we claim to be already. To summarize all what Mubarak has said, right, he has spoken a lot on the pitfalls, but to summarize it, firstly, you need to be wary of market overestimation and low adoption, regulatory and legal orders, weak governance or inexperienced team, limited exit or acquisition pathway, and unsustainable scaling plans, right? So for investors, you need to be able to balance enthusiasm with strategic caution, right? Integrate mentorship, advisory, operational support, even financial support when supporting women-led business or when including women in your plans, right? And the awareness of these pitfalls is not to scare you of investing, is to allow you to structure your capital wisely. Choose your partner strategically and support ventures holistically, right? You need to factor every aspect in when you're doing your investment plans. And investing in African women businesses isn't just about the money, like we mentioned earlier. You need to take an holistic approach. It's about impact, about growth, about long-term sustainability. And understanding these challenges makes success stories even more impressive, right? Because every $1 million raised, every cross-border expansion, every government contract won is a proof of investors' resilience, strategy, and vision.
So as we wrap up this conversation, let's reflect a bit, okay? African women in business and leadership are redefining economies. They're redefining our communities and global perception, okay? We need to also understand that, yes, they are entrepreneurial powerhouses. They are policy changers and investors themselves. We've seen the start. We've gone through the case studies. We've looked at the success stories and investment trends, all pointing to a continent in transformation. So the message is clear. This is the power shift, okay? And it is real, measurable, and investable. So for aspiring investors, identify sectors with high female leadership, leverage diaspora network, and apply ESG and gender-led strategies, okay? For founders, mentorship, capital access, and operational excellence are your key to growth. For policymakers, trust me, I can't leave you out of the picture. Creating an ecosystem that supports inclusivity, pays dividends economically and socially. And to our listeners, every story today shows that impact and innovation, go hand in hand, creating new pathways for success. African women are regional participants. They're leaders, they're innovators, and they've been our catalyst, and they'll be the catalyst for the next phase of Africa's growth.
Exactly, Mubarak. And dear listeners, remember, support women-led ventures through capital, mentorship on networks, watch trends and policies, and understand the pitfalls, right? Because they are strategic awareness that prevents costly mistakes. Finally, celebrate success stories, right? Showcase the women in your business that is doing well. Showcase the women around you, because they just show the world what's possible when you invest in women. And guys, the landscape is rich with innovation, growth, and opportunity. And we're seeing women at the forefront of all of it. So your key takeaway from today's episode should be that African women in leadership aren't waiting for permission anymore. They are creating their own markets, they're transforming societies, they're attracting global investments. And whether you're an investor, a founder, a student of business, or just someone who is very interested in women empowerment, this is a story worth following closely, right? This is something you want to really look into. While we sign off on today's episode, we want you to stay curious, stay engaged, and consider how you participate in this power shift. So guys, thank you for staying with us through today's episode. It's been lovely, insightful journey. Let's continue to watch, learn, invest, and support African women in leadership, because the future is happening now and it's happening fast.
All right, guys, it has been the Invest Africa Group podcast. My name is Mubarak Abibola. Stay curious, stay invested in Africa, and keep listening to Invest Africa Group podcast. Bye-bye.
Bye.